Wow. Things are going on, not things are not going on. Good morning, Miguel. How are you?
Good. I guess I don't know. Can we say that is it maybe bad to say that ranch girls like yourself may have some technical difficulty?
I'm hoping not. So we're going to have to get going like super fast because we have one of our elected representatives who has got a hard stop before 9:30. So we're going to have to get a move on here because we've got a huge audience this morning. Yeah. People are mad about this. So I'm going to bring on Representative Shaw. I'm giving him a second to, are you ready?
I think I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm going to get you here and then the next one we'll go to is Jett, Senator Shane Jett. So we're going to pull in Senator Shane this morning. And then hopefully we've got the donkey milk lady, my friend Saundra Traywick, who is, can we hear you now, Saundra?
Good morning.
Yes.
Yay, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Okay. So let's get going. We've got a very large audience this morning for live. So there are people who, Lisa says, good morning. Steph says, thank you. That we're already charged up and ready to go. So Jim, I'm going to throw it to you right away, just because of the fact that you have kind of limited time here. Tell us a little bit about the issue of biosludge and why you got involved in this.
Well, I mean, biosludge or humanure being used as fertilizer on farm and ranch land has been prolific, across our state and really on the eastern part of the state out where I live and a lot of us that are on this call. And so it's not really a new issue, but it's getting some newer publicity and awareness, which is really great. So that was a contributing factor as to why I got into the campaign last year. And I, along with Senator Jett, and some other lawmakers are committed to trying to stop the usage of this as fertilizer. I mean, that resoundingly was the voice of my constituents and the people that voted me into office. So I've got some legislation. I know Senator Jett has some as well. And so I'm happy to talk through that, but absolutely, we've got to stop that immediately.
Thank you. Thanks for flipping that around.
Yeah.
Tell us the name of your bill first, because I'm going to put it in here. You have a bill to actually stop the application of humanure.
Correct. So it's House Bill 1726, and there's three core parts. Number one is stopping the usage of it or the application of it as fertilizer. That's an immediate. It's got an emergency clause in it, so it'll go into effect as quickly as it possibly can. Number two is I'm calling on DEQ and ODAF to create some studies and in conjunction with landowners who volunteer to participate in those studies to figure out exactly what issue, the issues that we're dealing with. And so get some really detailed studies in place. And then DEQ and ODAF are going to be required to send us a report to the legislature by December 1st of this year before we start considering legislation for next session. So we understand what their recommendations are on how to handle this going forward. Because we know the immediate alternative is landfills, and that's not the long-term solution. Nobody wants that. But there are definitely solutions out there. And so that's step two, is identifying what we can do long-term. And then step three is figuring out how we can work on reclamation and remediation efforts to actually help the farmers and ranchers that use this, maybe unknowingly, as to how toxic and contaminating it is, and try to get their farms and ranches back to a safe level where they can operate safely.
So Senator Jett, I'm going to kind of throw it to you here just a second now. You also have a Senate bill, correct? You looked a
Yes.
little like Ben Franklin there for a sec with those glasses on. Hey, Ben.
I just need to put on some weight and go bald, I think.
We'll pass that part. So what's your, because you have it's kind of like a companion bill, isn't it?
Yes, so I have Senate Bill 620, which basically is rerunning the bill that I worked with my constituent, Saundra Traywick, to basically put some disclosure into what's actually going, because frankly, the farmers are being lied to, and they're told it's safe, and kind of like safe and effective during the COVID time. It's not safe, it's not effective, and it is contaminating not only the ground itself, but also contaminates the flow off into the riparian streams. And so we're wanting to make sure that the farmers, one, know that they're being lied to and that they're disclosing what's in that. So yes, it's a companion bill. I look forward to working with Representative Jim Shaw and pushing back against this, raising awareness. I think farmers make very, very good decisions when they have the truth in front of them of what actually they're being given and is being spread on the land.
Saundra, you were the one who brought this even to my attention years ago. I mean, we had smelled it out here. I mean, for the people who don't live out here, why don't you give me a little upswing on just the smell? Let's not even talk about anything but the smell.
So I think we need to not call it a smell, because it's really a toxic fume. I mean, it's beyond smell. Like, you smell a rose, this isn't a smell. This is an overwhelming, noxious, toxic fume that comes in your house, it emanates. I mean, you're concerned after you leave your property that it might be in your hair, that it might be on your clothes, that you might actually smell like this. And
it's a smell that has a feel. It's a smell that is so bad it has a feel. That's right. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And it permeates everything. And, it's instant headaches, coughing. Some people are vomiting when they go outside. I mean, it is not something your body is repelled by this. I mean, it smells, it's a toxic in between blood, guts, death, heavy metals, a metallic smell, and a chemical smell. And once you've smelled it, you don't forget it. A lot of people have accidentally reported it as a gas leak. We at one point thought that they must be spreading it around us, and when we discovered a dead possum right outside our porch. And it was the same like rotten death smell. And it took me a while, and I was so relieved it was just a dead possum, because I was getting ready to light up the phones to DEQ once again and say, this is not okay. I mean, currently on Memorial Road, there are feces down the road to the farm where they're dumping it. And when we were driving into town, I thought, oh, where are they putting it? And sure enough, you could see spread human and industrial waste on the road where they tracked it in and out of this field. And cyclists ride down that all the time, and they have no idea what they're riding their bicycles through on the road. And if you
I get worry about those cyclists, because you can smell that from 27 miles away. If they go that direction, they have worse problems.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just would feel super sorry for them, because you cannot breathe. So, I mean, I was shocked when I found out this happened. And I grew up on a wheat farm in Kansas, so I'm familiar with farming. And, manure, to call it humanure is a misnomer, and it leads people to believe this is just human waste. And that is not the truth.
So I'm going to throw it back to Jim, too, since we, let's get Jim in here as much as we can. Representative Shaw, I keep forgetting you're not just my friend anymore. You're actually a representative. I need to pay homage.
Friend first.
So you and I talked briefly before we got on this morning about something that is very important to both of us, and that is what we kind of believe is the Wild West of a lot of stuff that's going on in terms of regulation. You want to talk about that kind of just briefly?
I mean, on the topic of biosolids or sludge, we've got to do way better than where we're at today. I mean, it's a free for all, and everybody knows it, and so that has a considerable lack of regulation in place that needs to be improved for the health and safety of the people that live here in the state. On top of that, we've got just an overall movement of industrialization of our state, and particularly our rural communities. We talk about industrial wind or solar or data centers or battery storage systems or whatever they may be. And these vary in size and shape and stature. But at the end of the day, they are industrial complexes and industrial facilities. And we do not have hardly any statutes or regulations in place to protect people who live near these sites that will go through economic impacts, environmental impacts, health and safety risks, whether it's fire, whether it's chemical, what have you. We are doing a very poor job as a state. If the government's fundamental priority is to protect the health and safety of the citizens that they serve, we're doing a pretty poor job of it at this point with everything that we're being attacked with.
Well, I think Ryan said time we hold these agencies accountable. He also said, and Saundra, put a pin in this so we can go back to this. He says, where is the worthless EPA on the sludge? Seems like something they should be held accountable for. So when we pull you back in, will you go to that topic so we don't forget it? Mm-hmm. In our area out in southeastern Oklahoma County and in Lincoln County, where you represent the people there, what is the main concern, do you think, with people about the dumping of this? I'll just call it toxic waste. Julia said it. I think when you smell it, it's pretty much, you have the idea.
You do have the idea, and obviously it's a huge turnoff when people smell it. So that's kind of step one to the recognition that something's not right. Wherever the smell is coming from, it's not natural. It's not obviously good for us. Then people start to get more informed about what is actually in the sludge and all of the contaminants and the toxins that are in that, and the industrial waste and everything else that comes from the city. And then it's a pretty quick path to, we should not be in any way, shape, or form using that as fertilizer on farm and ranch land. So there's a pretty quick understanding of this is not good when you smell it. Now, the one major concern that I have is you will have some people that are on the other side of the argument from everybody on this call that simply want to control the smell. And so there's methods in which they can pelletize it to where it doesn't smell, when in reality, that's giving a false sense of safety or assurance to everybody that, oh, well, now it's no longer toxic. No, it actually would be just as toxic as it was before. You just can't smell it. And so I'm vehemently opposed to anybody suggesting that we should simply just take the smell away and then everybody will forget about it. That's.
Well, I was wondering how you do that. Do you just dump truckloads of Febreze behind it? I mean,
that would be one way, I'm sure.
Big sprayers of Febreze.
Right.
Well, Steph said, and this is true, big pharma cannot be removed from human waste. Look at all of the side effects of that alone. And I think before you hop off of here, why don't you address the fact some of the constituents that are in this? Because we talk about the smell because you can't get away from it. That's the thing that first lets you know that something is wrong. What is in this stuff that we should all be concerned about?
I mean, PFAS, which is the forever chemicals they're called forever chemicals for a reason. You can't get rid of them. Those go on to the ground. They get into groundwater. They get into nearby streams, and there's runoff. And I mean, there's lawsuits around the country about this, and people losing, livestock and ponds of fish and what have you. But so there's forever chemicals. There's, Saundra mentioned the industrial waste. You think about anything that gets flushed into the sewage system in the city. So you're talking hospitals and other facilities that are pushing this industrial waste into the sewage system. that ultimately is getting transported into the same bucket, if you will. And it's just, it's horrific to really truly understand what all goes into this and then is somehow put onto our farm and ranch land.
Which then goes into the soil and water, which then we drink and eat. If you can give us something so we can go ahead and get you off of here this morning, can you give us something other than to just follow your bill and try? I mean, we know it's been assigned to a committee. What committee?
I believe it's been assigned to the Ag Committee. I haven't received confirmation yet on when it'll get heard, but I mean, absolutely, yeah. Follow the bill as closely as you can. Check the committee hearing dates. I'll be obviously announcing on social media the moment that I know that it's going to be heard in committee. So for those of you that want to come to the committee hearing and meeting, absolutely come on site here to the Capitol and do that. I would really encourage that. Watch it online. But also for those of you that, you know, are not a constituent of mine and you live in other areas of the state, reach out to your representative and to your senator and ask them to endorse and support, you know, this bill along with Senator Jett's, and, you know, help us actually get some real movement on this issue that has had strong conservative principles behind it for years and has lacked the necessary support across the Capitol.
Well, Steph says, should we send letters to them? Who is the head of the Ag Committee? Because I think sending emails to them and asking he or she to put it on the schedule, is that's
absolutely something that people should do, and I would encourage that. I do believe it's Representative Paczkowski. That's the head of the Ag Committee, and if I'm wrong in any of that, Jenny, I'll follow up with you and you can correct me and follow up.
What, Saundra?
I thought it was Representative Del Curbs, but I could be wrong.
I don't know this. I don't know since the new committee assignments have come out. I'm not really sure.
That was last year, so maybe not.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. I do remember that Curbs was last year. And we can look it up. It's not a problem. We'll get it looked up beforehand. But if it's going into the Ag Committee, we need to get letters to that committee chairman and ask him to get it on the schedule.
Right.
Well, Jenny, I think it's okay. Why don't we just send them a bag of it? I mean, if it's okay to just dump it on the ground, why don't we just send them a bag?
That's not a bad idea, Michael.
So it is, I just confirmed it is assigned to the Ag Policy Committee, which is underneath the Energy and Natural Resources Oversight Committee.
Okay.
And the Ag Committee chair is Representative Paczkowski with Vice Chair Rick West.
Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. Well, so let's make sure we get those notes to Representative Paczkowski, asking him to put the bill in committee and have it be heard. And just like Representative Shaw said, make sure that you contact your representatives and ask them, hey, can you please be a co-author, co-sponsor on this bill of Representative Shaw's? So I think that's something, those are two things that we need to get done. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to let you go then, and so that you can get to your next meeting. Bless your heart. But thanks for being with us this morning, and thanks for standing up for this and running that bill. We appreciate you.
Thank you all so much. Y'all have a blessed day.
Take care. You as well. All right.
Am I on the spotlight? Am I on the spotlight?
We're going to put you in this. Not me.
Well, real quick. Real quick. I think we need to rewind just a second to tell people that are on here are going to listen that maybe don't know what we're talking about. Where you have basically what we're talking about is you have two streams in the sewer. You have the liquid stream and you have the solid stream that's in the sewer. It's separated out. They take the liquid stream, they sanitize it, and that's what comes back as your water in your house or wherever. The other stream, the solid stream, is what we're talking about. That is what they call, like in Edmond, it's called wastewater. Other places, they may call it solid, whatever. But that is, in my opinion, Jenny, the most toxic substance literally on this planet. And I believe it's actually criminal. I think it is an actual crime what they're doing, taking that, because you like with what Jim said, there's industrial waste. I mean, literally everyone that's hooked into a sewer, it all goes into it winds up being a product in this biosludge or toxic toxic sewer sludge. That's what I'm going to call it, toxic sewer sludge. But we're not talking about like a couple hundred chemicals here. We're talking like upwards of 100,000 chemicals, synthetic chemicals that are never going to leave this planet. And it's just going, I mean, it's an absolute crime. It's just a crime in my opinion. But I just want to make sure that everybody knows that's what we're talking about here. They literally take that solid waste and they go, instead of remediate it or incinerate it or take care of it in some other way, they literally take it and spray it, put it back onto our farmland. So whatever's going down your toilet, literally in 3 weeks, it's coming back on your plate. So just think about that.
Well, and beyond that, whatever is going down the sewer. So most of this comes from the Oklahoma City water treatment facility, and that gets emptied in, let's see, Tinker, right, Shane? Right, Senator? Tinker and is one of the big ones. And then they have PFAS because of the firefighting chemicals. So that can go in. What else am I missing, Senator?
Well, not only that, but there was a whistleblower out at Tinker who came into work to take care of something on their off day and discovered there was individuals there pouring drums down the drain of chemicals that they were using for cleanup of aircraft. And so all of that goes in as well. And of course, that whistleblower was fired. So they cover things up. And these are just bad actors who don't want to be embarrassed in the public. And we are all very supportive of Tinker Air Force Base and their mission to support the warfighters. But you have individuals who will cut corners to save time, to save money, and that ends up into the sewer, along with all the pharmaceuticals that people are taking, that are dumping, that are flushing down their toilet, all the Drano that you flush down, and Mike is correct. They end up in your plate because they get spread on farms that are either growing hay or running cattle. And we know that cattle have died out there of mysterious causes. It's not a mystery to us. We know that if you poison stuff, it dies. And so then you also have the water table, the aquifers that are in below that, so that runs off into the creeks. And when you have rain, it also, when the smell dies down, as soon as it rains, it wakes up all those chemicals and those all those bacteria again. So you have all these toxins that go from the sewer to the farmland, into the grass, into the livestock, into the cattle, and onto your plate. So everyone here that's listening has a vested interest in saying, clean up your act. And when Saundra and I were running legislation last year, all of a sudden we got this rush through legislation that indemnified, so held harmless, the municipalities that were dumping on our rural communities that are satellites to these large communities. You have Norman, you have Tulsa, you have Oklahoma City, and they ran legislation to protect them against lawsuits. It's kind of like this: why are you pardoning Fauci if you did nothing wrong, right? And so the legislature, instead of protecting farmers, protected the cities that were dumping on farmers. So there's a lot of accountability. If you look right here, that's my personal mobile number. If you text me, I will text you back the Energy Chairman contact information, and I will text you back the Vice Chairman. So the Energy Chairman is Senator Grant Green. The Vice Chairman is Senator Tom Wood. Both of them are from rural areas. Both of them are aware. I've had conversations with them about these toxins, and they need to hear from you that you're worried about your state. And even if you live in Edmond, or you live in Oklahoma City or Tulsa, this hurts you and your family too. And so we need to use science, actual science, not political science, not science fiction. Science is basically figuring out how God programmed chemicals to work, and then using processes to render them inert so we don't hurt ourselves with them. It's very simple. There is scientific solutions, but it costs money. And to save money, they'd rather dump it on the farmland.
Well, I think that's another thing we need to talk about. You may have to do, because your microphone is, I think you can take out your ear pods now, because I could hear you a lot better then. And that was really important stuff, what you just said. So Robbie asks, was it Senator Green's bill? Was that the one that indemnified people that put it on there? No, Saundra, whose was it?
It was Senator Dave Rader's bill. It used to be House Bill 2305, but they're running it again under Senate Bill 271, I believe. And that's, once again, they're going to try to make them not liable, for contamination for PFAS historically or going forward.
Well, and let's talk about that. So part of the reason why they want to do this, why these people would want to be indemnified, is because it goes back to exactly what Ryan Ford asked a minute ago. Remember, I said, put a pin in that, and I've lost
the EPA.
Yeah, the EPA. So talk a little bit about the EPA and what's going on with the EPA, that originally, what they said originally and what they're saying now.
Senator Jett, do you want to address that?
Sure. So I had a
much better, by the way.
Thank you. With the head of the DEQ, and they said under the Biden administration, the EPA has become very intractable and weaponized, and so they are very reluctant to engage with the EPA because they would put standards that exceeded scientific capability. And so there's a lot of, I believe, nefarious efforts on part of the EPA to withhold regulation that will establish the standard scientific application of solutions to rendering these chemicals and everything inert. Because if they contaminate the land, then they can come back with the UN Project 2030 to be able to come back and condemn your land to take it away from you. So it looks like they were withholding regulation guidance so that it maximized contamination and punitively hurting any of the DEQ's state organizations around the United States who were trying to establish criterion so that there was this limbo and chaos. And here's the other problem. In order for you to test your land, you need a mass spectrometer. And it cost anywhere from a used one, $250,000 up to $750,000. Well, that's the cost of your farm. And so they've put the PFAS and the types of things that you need to do to be able to test your land outside of the reach of the average citizen. So you're going to be dependent on, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And guess what? Your land is contaminated. It's contaminated because we didn't put policies in place when we knew it was being contaminated to make sure it was contaminated. So only the government can come in and save you from the problem they created.
So that brings me to another point then. So for years, literally, I mean, I know Saundra has been on this. I've been on it with her. And when I was mayor in Luther, we actually banned it. You can't use it inside the boundary of the town of Luther without getting, I think it's $1,000 fine. I mean, we tried to make it just absolutely not okay to do that. Because out in Luther and around where Saundra and I both live, the water table is very, very high. So anything that you put on the ground doesn't have a long way to percolate into the water supply. It's not like that. We have very, very high water table here. And so we've talked about this for years. What was the reticence and what has been, because you've introduced something for the last 2 years, isn't it? 2 or 3? Why is it that the legislature does not want to hear these bills, does not want to recognize that we're having a problem with this, do you think?
Well, I can answer from a constituent perspective.
Perfect.
When I went up there and talked to a representative, he said, nothing will be done about your humanure bills until a certain representative is gone. And when we have legislators up there who are using sludge on their own land.
You mean like Representative Kevin Wallace, who has been voted out? Okay.
Yeah, I actually said that. And he said, you mean Representative Kevin Wallace? And he said, we both know who I mean. So now he is gone. So they don't have him as their excuse for why they won't hear these bills.
Well, but I'm going to stop you right there. Why would that? If something's hurting land, which is and water, which we all have to have, and a constituent is bringing that to their attention, why would we play politics? What's the purpose of that?
Well, and back to the EPA issue, one of the things that I've been told over and over again by farmers, by legislators, well, the EPA says this is safe.
Okay.
So the EPA has been used as a scapegoat to make us look crazy, like me and anyone else who dares to stand up against it. Well, the EPA says it's safe. The EPA says it's safe. And even our DEQ has used them as an excuse. Yeah, I agree. Use it on the grounds of the state capitol.
That would, honestly, we should take a truck out there and dump some. And I guarantee you, we'd get that bill passed like 4 seconds. Get it on
All
committee.
you'd have to do is bring a truck with it in the back of the bed.
Right. And
Yeah.
park it.
I would encourage you not to dump it and not to mail anyone because they'll get you for attempted murder. Just put it in the back of your bed and just say, come by and take a whiff.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, true. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
You're
So,
correct.
yeah, these farmers have been lied to. And Senator Jett tried to run legislation as well that would have limited and made them test for also the chemical abortion drugs that are in this stuff, because people think we've banned abortion, but all we've done is flip it over to being chemical abortions in our state. And if you logic that through, the drugs and the baby are being flushed down toilets around our state and ending up on farmland that grows our food. So the resulting infertility in our animals and our humans is going to skyrocket, but there won't be a smoking gun because no one's looking for it.
Well, and I think too, we've been told for years that there's no way that antibiotics or that birth control pills or that other, hormonal things can get into the wastewater system. And my argument has always been, how are you going to get it out?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And they say this is treated. They're not even testing for this. They're not. And so the other people need to know there are multiple bills going through right now, so they don't inadvertently support the wrong one.
Yeah.
So obviously Senator Shane Jett and Representative Jim Shaw have great legislation going through that would actually protect farmers and help remediate the problem and have voluntary testing. So, this isn't we're blanket testing and shutting down farms, but if you want to be a part of helping and remediating, there would be that in there. But there's also Senate Bill number 3, which is by Senator Grant Green and Representative John George. And so Senator Grant Green, correct me if I'm wrong, is the chair of the Energy Committee on the Senate who decides what will be heard, correct? So
that is correct. It's assigned to energy.
Right. So is yours going to be heard? Do you know yet?
I haven't been notified if it's going to be heard. It was assigned to the Energy Committee. And so if your listeners want to write down the number of these bills, it's House Bill 1726. It's Jim Shaw's bill. My two bills.
House Bill 1726.
26.
I was going with 1776, so that's where I got stuck. Okay.
And I'm
okay, so
I just got an
1726
email
by
from-
Shaw. What
Yes.
else?
And then mine are Senate Bill 268 and Senate Bill 620 are the two that Saundra and I worked on, and then we reintroduced again this year.
Okay,
both
so
of those have been assigned to energy. And I had
Here they are, guys. Write them
conversation-
down.
Yes. I had a conversation with Senator Grant Green, who expressed concerns about the application of humanure and that he wanted to look into it. So we're having those conversations. At the end of the day, it's important that the chairman hear from his constituents, but also the rest of Oklahoma, that we have concerns about the cycle of toxins that end up into our food supply. So it's important to engage in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So don't forget. So HB 1726, you need to write Representative Patskowski, and then SB 268 and SB 620, you need to write Grant Green. And I'll get that out when I put the stuff up on the website after we get finished. Go to the website, look that up, and you'll have all that information there. And I'll even I'll hyperlink everybody's addresses and that stuff. So if you want to wait until we're finished, that's fine. But make sure you do come back and do that.
And when you
And
do,
if I might add real quickly, it's important that they also reach out to their own House member and their own senator. And the ask is this: co-author these 3 bills to show to me, your constituent, that you are genuinely supporting it, and to your colleagues that there is broad-based support for cleaning up these toxins, because we don't want to eat this in our steaks and our vegetables.
yeah. And I would also thank Senator Green for putting in Senate Bill 3 that would establish a moratorium, and encourage him that we are beyond the point of a moratorium right now. Like, this is the reason that Senator Jett and Representative Shaw's bills are the ones that we really want to be heard, because my concern and my lack of trust for the EPA and the DEQ right now, and the cities, is that if we put in a moratorium, that we can begin to reapply sludge to farmland after we put in whatever they deem is the safe limit of PFAS in sludge. So I no longer trust them to protect farmers and ranchers. So if we're putting in a moratorium and then we say they get to determine what the safe amount is, what's to stop them from going to the city and saying, hey, we know you've already been testing for PFAS and you found some. So what's the amount you found? Oh, okay, we'll make it 10 times higher than that. So you guys keep on dumping sludge.
Yeah.
And I'm cynical, I know. And that's why I'm concerned that Senate Bill 3 is not going to cut the sludge at this point.
Well, it's not going to be what we need to remediate and stop this.
Right.
A moratorium doesn't do that. It's a pause.
Right.
We need a stop.
Yeah. We need to stop the damage, start cleaning up. And I appreciate that they are trying to do something at this point, and we're getting more and more attention on this. But I just feel like we really need to analyze all this legislation, and absolutely kill Senator Rader's bill. This is not okay. We don't get to give them a pass. We have the right to redress for grievances. So why are we picking and choosing who is liable and who is not liable, and saying they're passive receivers? Well, that was proven not the case. Cities have been sued because they could have implemented the Clean Water Act to enforce that whoever was flushing whatever they were flushing down the drain had to make sure it did not have these chemicals in it. So they're negligent. And by putting in legislation to try to exempt them from liability, we're just covering up the problem. And also, Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen is a co-author on legislation on the congressional level that would essentially do the same thing. Exempt these people and the perpetrators from liability, leaving the farmers with no recourse, but then to sue the government, which actually lines up with what they did with vaccines.
So I'm going to just want to put in a couple of things that Lisa said. You're not cynical, Saundra. You're only remembering history. And that's actually true. But here's the one that I really wanted to get in. She said, for those of us who have diligently steered clear of hormonal medications, toxins in the home, artificial food additives, etc., this is more than a slap in the face. It's war. You're poisoning our families and taking away our choice in the matter. And I wanted to get that out there because I think that we have some things going on right now that I'm not comfortable with. And I could tell Representative Shaw wasn't either, because he made the point that so many of these things that we're fighting right now with the green energy scam and all of that, they're happening in rural areas on farmland. And I think people in cities, people in neighborhoods, they think, I don't have a windmill in my backyard. It's not like they could put one in here. Where are they going to do it? I don't really care. Well, but the problem isn't just that. You're thinking a little small, because where you need to think more on the level of the butterfly flaps its wings in Sri Lanka, and then in Mexico, we get a tidal wave. This is what we need to be thinking about, because you may think that you're insulated in your neighborhood and this stuff isn't going to happen to you, but people, it's in your water. Unless you have unless you're catching rainwater and that's all you're drinking, and who knows what's in that anymore. you're not going to have clean water if you don't start paying attention to this and getting it cleaned up. So I really adjure everybody, I don't care if you live on property or not, this is your problem. Take the concern to heart for yourself. So
well, I want to make 2 points real quick, Jenny. On the first of all, Saundra, remember they've got a Clean Air Act, they've got a Clean Water Act. What about the soil? Where's the Clean Soil Act? I mean, come on, the biggest, probably most important of all of them is the soil. But Jenny, I want to say something on the water. I want everybody to remember their job is to sanitize the water. They do not filter the water. The water is not filtered, so these things come back in, even, and they can do a lot better job. But third, what I want to say is on Lisa's point with people that are trying to, not take these drugs and things like that. I want to just throw up a little article here. This is from Science Direct. This is back from 13 years ago. And it was showing at that time, diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl, basic Benadryl, was so prevalent, so persistent. It was the fastest way to literally check the soil to see if biosolids have been dumped on it, was just to test for Benadryl. So you think about, no one is just taking their bottles of Benadryl and just dumping them down the toilet. They're taking them orally. They're going to the restroom, and that is what is showing up on your ranch land, on your land, is things like Benadryl. Think about that cycle. Think about how small, it's not like you just have massive amounts of Benadryl being dumped in there and then, they can't take care. This is, people are taking this. That's what's winding up on your land. Just think about everything else. That's just one small little example. I just wanted to show everybody just how prevalent these things are when it comes to our land.
Right. And we are one of 13 states that allows food for human use to be grown in human waste. And so I was at a state-sponsored agriculture event, and I went to the greenhouse speaker platform one, and they said at the end, well, where are you going to get your soil? And most of the people in here were getting greenhouses to grow food for the SNAP program, and for the children's school, because, you have to have the carrots or whatever on your school. And so one of the people in the audience said, well, you can get it from Midwest City. And there was no objection at all. Yes, you can get it from Midwest City. And I raised my hand and I said, that is humanure, that is biosolids. And people in the audience who were getting ready to go sign up to grow food for kids on their plates had no idea what this was.
Well, and Jenny, remember last time we did this, I showed that bag of meal organite that they literally sell at Home Depot. And literally on the bag, it says, not for human use, not for, food production, contains chemicals that'll cause cancer. It's such a racket. It's unbelievable that they're going to take, some municipality can literally go take human waste, toxic human waste, and then turn around and sell it back to the people. It's unbelievable.
Well, I missed a point from Robbie, because there have been a couple ones. One person, it may have been Steph, asked, how do other countries deal with this? And then Robbie said the U.S. needs to be done what's done in Australia, clean the sludge and transform it. And then I think they burn it, don't they? Isn't that what they do? And they create these great big, they create energy.
So there was, I believe in New Zealand, they were making biochar and they were burning it. But there is some concern that when you burn it, then it can actually get in the air. So, when we were fighting this in Luther, I remember walking into the city hall and I could barely breathe on the walking in because there was so much dust in the air. And if you remember, It was the Saudi Arabian dust cloud that was here in Oklahoma, and everyone was concerned. Yeah. So, if you're in the city, beyond eating this stuff, you are breathing it. You may not smell it, but you're breathing this stuff, and PFAS is airborne. That's one of the ways that we absorb it, is by breathing it, along with all these other chemicals, So we can't pretend this isn't going to spread through the air, through the water, through all of this. But one of the things about burning it, you know, it did create a product they could use. PFAS can be destroyed by burning it, but some of it could then be airborne. So what they're actually doing, and there's a company in California, they are using supercritical water to destroy this. And it is pretty amazing. And supercritical water is hotter than hot. And so it is such high temperatures, hotter than like volcanic lava. And they can actually destroy this and do it in a safe way. So that is something they're already doing here in the United States. And yes, it would cost them money. But we put in legislation years ago that we were going to try to form alternative energy sources. Mm-hmm. And one of those was wind, one of those was solar, and one of those was through our waste. So we could have been focusing on being a leader in the United States and cleaning up our waste and then actually using that energy, yes, to create SF fuels, which is sustainable aviation fuel, SAF fuels. We could have been using it for all of these other things. And instead we stuck our head in the ground and said, well, the EPA hasn't told us what to do, so we're going to do nothing and keep dumping it on farmland. So I have
well, and that brings me to another to a question, Senator, that I think is right up your alley. What is commerce above protecting the health and welfare of the people in the Constitution? I mean, is it protect?
Say that again.
Oh, we've lost you. There, oh, you're back. Well, I was just making the point that our Constitution protects basically our health and safety, not our economics, you know, and we keep putting money into things like wind turbines, but we're not putting money into trying to find ways to clean up our waste, as Saundra said. And then I had another question, and then when we lost you, I lost my question too.
Well, and basically, yes, the governments are instituted among men to preserve unalienable rights endowed by our Creator, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you are contaminating your food supply, you're in direct violation of that fundamental American principle that you're destroying life. So, yeah, our priorities have been screwed up. I think there are incompetence is part of the problem. Greed or avarice is part of the problem. At the end of the day, we the people, because our founding fathers concentrated the power in our hands, if we flex that, reach out to our elected officials, hold them accountable, and remind them of their fiduciary responsibility to protect first and over profits, then you're going to get I think a resolution to this. And it has to be an Oklahoma solution. We can't look to the federal government to solve this problem. It's our problem. And they're clearly derelict in their duty and aligned with values that are not consistent with ours. We've got to hold our elected officials accountable so they will hold DEQ accountable with established standards and protect our farmlands and preserve life.
So that was what I was going to ask you. Is so many in all of the years that I've interacted with government, and it's, I don't know, 15 or 17, something like that anyway. One of the things that I get traditionally angered by every year is I will talk to some legislator who will lecture me about the federal government having precedence over Oklahoma law and that we have to do whatever the federal government tells us to do. And, you know, usually I say something, and I know you won't believe this about me, but usually I say something a little off about, gosh, why did we then fight the war for independence then if the federal government was going to just tell us all what to do? Right. And I don't think anybody remembers that Jefferson was the one who talked so eloquently about states being the incubators of new ideas, right? And that's why they didn't want a highly centralized government. So, Senator, how do we get our legislative representatives to understand that we are an individual state and we can do what we want and use that old Italian goodbye sign, you know, tell them, you know, leave us alone. We'll do what we want. Why don't we ever seem to get to that point?
Well, and I think that we are seeing a movement in that direction, right? There's a lot of people that have awakened as a result of the 2020 pandemic and all the abuses and steamrolling across every one of our First Amendment rights. And so I think there's a lot of people that are awakened. I mean, you've got a lot of people that are watching right now. And the solution is us. It is we the people. And our elected representatives do not represent the federal government. They do not represent state government. They represent us to government to make sure government is protecting the freedoms that God, not government, God gave you. And so part of it is re-education, because a lot of these concepts have been erroneously taught in our public schools through manipulation of our curriculum. Every single public school child that you talk to will tell you separation of church and state is in our Constitution. It is not. It is, in fact, in the 1918 Soviet Constitution, which says the church should be separate from the state and the schools from the churches. But the Constitution of the United States says that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment or prohibiting the free exercise of religion. So a lot of it is educating our elected officials and vetting them before they walk up to those state capitol steps to make sure they understand their job is to represent you, not rule over you. No king, but King Jesus.
Nice. Okay. So I wanted to go back a minute because Dorn, he's sending me some pictures, but he did make a comment that we never talked about here because we got kind of busy there for a second. Please talk about our wildlife deer turkey. Wade Free Wildlife Department Director told me DEQ says it's safe. So thoughts?
Right. In Maine, they're now issuing do not eat advisory on deer, and because of PFAS contamination. And, you know, these other states, you know, people say this is only a problem in Maine. Well, they would tell me that. And then what happened in Texas this last year was a neighboring farm who did not use sludge now has, I believe, 39 animals dead, maybe 29 of their cows, horses are dead from neighboring sludge. So this is not just a Maine problem. Michigan farmer was told it was safe. Then the same government that tells them it's safe, you know, one of their departments comes in and starts testing his water, his land, his beef, tells him he can't sell it anymore and it's contaminated. And so these farmers are also being told and taught from a young age now that this is sustainable and they're doing their duty to help, you know, rid the cities of their sludge, and it's a great effective fertilizer. Well, we've been told that we're anti-capitalist and, you know, we would just want to ban everything. Okay,
we're tree huggers. Don't forget, we're tree huggers.
Yeah, but let's back that up. The reason farmers take this is because it is free and they get their land disc twice for free. If you made this the same price as fertilizer they had to go buy at the store, at the feed store, and they had to disc it in themselves and get literal crap all over their equipment, how many farmers would sign up for this? None. If we're capitalists, then let's make the cities charge the same price for their toxic waste as if you had to buy fertilizer. No one would take it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And that is something, by the way, Michael, I've had to mute your mic a little bit because there's just a lot of background noise in there for some reason. And I gotta quit talking because then I get off the track. I know what it was. I remember when we tried to ban it in Luther, and Saundra, do you remember that? And we actually had a landowner show up and say, well, you're going to owe me then for my fertilizer cost then when I have to go out and buy it. And I went, okay, so wait a second then. So you're telling me this is all about money and not about what's best for anybody. I mean, that's basically what you're telling me. And then I saw one of our mutual friends on our, Facebook page was talking this morning about the fact that he was trying to explain to farmers why this was bad, right? Oh, and Robert says, is it Biosludge's welfare? But I mean, that's pretty accurate. And when I was reading what John read this morning, or John was showing me this morning, he said that he had been talking to a bunch of farmers who were like, didn't want to give this stuff up because of the fact that it's free.
Right. They save thousands of dollars by using it. And then, are they declaring that on their taxes as a free government handout? No. And so, and one thing, I mean, Senator Jett had another bill. Sorry, I'm getting riled up here. You had another bill that would have just made them declare that this was used on their product that they were selling. And they killed that
Yes.
one too. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, transparency and product labeling, because we won't buy hay from anyone around here that's used sludge.
Well, think about
Dorn
it.
said-
Effectively, we have a government agency that is colluding to save money or make money with a private corporation that's competing with the private sector. And they're assuring us that it's safe and effective. Does that sound like anything we've heard before? Safe and effective.
Oh my-
Inject this in your land. There's no toxins. Oh, by the way, we're not disclosing anything that's in it. Right?
Right.
Just like Pfizer,
And-
Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, making tons of money, injecting us with poisons and venom. And, oh, safe and effective. Oh, well, it's not. So now we've indemnified Fauci. The same thing is going on with our farmlands, and the toxic result is the same. It's death.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah. And
That
then
was
not
so
liable.
well said. Round of applause.
Well, and I want to make another point on that, Jenny.
Awesome.
Think about this. Over time, you know, these massive companies like Monsanto and Cargill and all these places, they have literally upped the toleration limits of those chemicals also. You rewind, like back with glyphosate, 30 years ago, it was less than like 1 million parts per million. It was like a decimal of that. Now it's like 30 or 40, whatever. I mean, so on top of, yes, we're getting this exposure and all these bio whatever, the concentrations that they're allowed to dump on us in the first place, they're going up on top of it. It's like a double whammy.
Wow, did you see what Robert said? I put it up there and just started smiling. Safe is the industrial byproduct of fluoride added to water. And then also Becky had a really good question. And Shane, Senator, you may need to weigh in on this. I was wondering about a similar issue. How can we get most legislators to stop supporting harmful energy sources when they profit from them? We discuss fundamental rights and representation, but in reality, representatives can vote as they please. So how do we counteract the financial incentives of these harmful practices to motivate a shift towards more beneficial ones? Senator?
Excellent question. And at the end of the day, it is we the people engaging in the process. And if you find that you have a state representative who, because of their own financial interest or corporate alignments, do not listen to their district, the end result is you remove and replace. Sometimes the only way to change people is to change people. And this last election cycle saw very clearly when people run like they're conservative and they send mail outs that saying they're conservative, they come up to the legislature and they represent their own interests and they do not vote like a conservative. You had 3 very powerful, very influential representatives who their people didn't care what their titles were or how powerful they were. They weren't taking care of business back home, and they sent them home to think about their life choices, and they sent up a freshman in their place, because at the end of the day, we want people who represent our values up at the state capitol and do not use their power to enrich themselves or run over the people who, quite frankly, are their bosses.
Can I clip some of these and just...
Those need to be viral. Those are perfect.
Those do need to be viral. I'm just going to clip those little things and get them out there, because that's, I mean, but here's the thing. And Senator, you've been around a long time in politics as well. And I know that you understand what I'm going to say. It is so hard to bridge apathy. It is so hard to bridge apathy. People feel like somebody else is going to deal with this. People think, I don't know what to do about this. People think, they just simply sit with their, they sit on their hands and then wonder why anything isn't changing. And then the other thing too, we're having all of these issues with homeschoolers, and they're trying to get out of this, free money giveaway because they're so worried about the government getting involved with this. And you go talk to other homeschoolers about it, and they scream and yell, I want my money. That's my money. I want to get my money back. And all I can think of is, President Reagan, and he was my first vote when I turned 18, was to vote for Ronald Reagan. And he said that freedom is but one generation of being lost in this country. And it's so true, because we don't teach people, we don't teach our children, just like you said, Senator, we've gone to social studies instead of history. So we have this idea, we include all of these social things instead of just historically facts, what has happened. And so now I feel like we're losing our country because people don't understand that the government isn't there to be an udder. I mean, that's not the job of the government. The government is to protect me. It's not to feed me and clothe me and house me and give me medicine and all of that kind of stuff. How do you bridge this? How do we fix this?
Well, if you're asking me, it's one conversation at a time. And you've got a lot of people that are listening to you right now. All they need to do is find out, one, who is my House member? Who is my senator? And once you know who that is, then you know who your target is. Then you make sure they know who you are. They know who your family is. Where do they go to church? Where do they work whenever they're not at the state capitol for those 4 months? Cultivate a relationship with them and tell them your story. We're just people just like you. I understand. I served in the House of Representatives 20 years ago for 6 years. I was out for 10 years. I got to reflect over my service. This time around, I understand the lobbyists are not my friend. They pretend to be. My friends are the ones who elected me. It's Saundra Traywick and her donkey dairy farm. It is you, well, until I lost you with redistricting. It is the people that are writing checks on April 15th that pays for everything that I represent. My constituents know I'm the help. My job is to make sure that no one runs over them and their family, that DHS doesn't take advantage of them, that government is not here to run over you. It's here to protect the freedoms and make sure the tremendous amount of power that we have given state government is not then used and turned on the very people from whom that power came. And the only way you do that is by engaging with those human beings who you have elected and given and ask them to represent you and your family, to represent your interests as state government. Let them know who you are. Come up to the state capitol when in our offices from Monday through Thursday. And I promise you, if you come up to the office and they know you're a constituent, they will usually clear their schedule and visit with you because it's unusual. It doesn't happen. So don't be weary in well-doing. In the end, you'll reap if you don't faint. Don't give up. This country belongs to you. This state belongs to you. And those representatives and senators belong to you. And if they don't get that, replace them with someone who does.
Okay, well, here are 2 things for you to follow up on those wonderful words. So Robert says we need practical constitutional rules in Oklahoma that allow every legislator to get a voice and get at least a few of their bills on the floor for a vote. So I think that's one thing that we've found out, and that you found out, I believe, is that if they don't like you or your bills, they simply won't hear them. So that precludes you from being a voice for your constituents. And that's a huge problem that has got to stop. And then Becky said, and this is a really great, this is a good question. Are y'all feeling the backlash from colleagues after those 3 were ousted? Are your bills being heard? Do you feel like you're able to advocate for the issues, or is there still an uphill battle despite those members being removed?
I'm looking forward to seeing the answer to that question, quite frankly, because in September of last year, we founded the Freedom Caucus. And the Freedom Caucus provides national level support and organization for those of us who are conservative, who actually care about what the taxpayers care about, what the grassroots care about. And so for the first time in my 4 years, I'm going into my 5th, as a senator, I have national level support and organization that we didn't have. All of us conservatives were representing our district, and the leadership was organized, systematically undermining our efforts to represent our district. This time around, we've got the Freedom Caucus, who provides us with research on the bills that may have been tried in Montana or Oregon or Louisiana, and they're providing us that intel on the front end. So we have that. So I expect it's going to be a little bit different. Also, the mandate for leadership now, on the heels of removing the President Pro Tem elect and sending a freshman in to replace him that would listen to the district, sent a very powerful message that the people are now paying attention. You can't, as one senator did, who was the appropriations chair, say, I'm the most moderate member of this body, and then turn around and sell a mail out to his entire district saying he was conservative to the core. You can't be moderate in a Republican caucus and be conservative to the core at the same time. It was a lie. It's hypocrisy. And guess what? We're going to find people to replace them. Right now, Senate District 8 is up for grabs, and we need to be taking a very hard look at who is running. Are they aligned with the establishment? Are they aligned with their constituents? Because if they're aligned with their constituents and have those conservative values, you're going to see that reflected in the leadership will begin shifting to represent the value of the majority. Because right now, the values of the majority in the state Senate, 1/3 of my caucus could just as easily be registered Democrats and vote exactly the way they are, because they're interested in power and they're not interested in reflecting constitutional conservative Christian values that their constituents think they are. There's a 1/3 of us who roughly is the Freedom Caucus that are adhering to biblical principles and constitutional conservative ideology, and that we're the ones that are being beat up. And then there's a 1/3 that are actually conservative, but they're willing to be manipulated by leadership, or they're willing to exchange their conservative values for advancement, either for their agenda, for their personal pocketbook, and these types of things. Not all of them, but it's all a power play. And unless we inoculate them with a clear understanding that we're watching, we're listening, and we're expecting them to reflect our values, you're going to have business as usual at the Capitol.
Right.
Christopher says, looking forward to see how the Freedom Caucus will do this session. Many great patriots on the caucus. And I have to say, I've heard so many people say the same thing as Dorn's saying is, there are people that want us to be quiet because the leaders need to lead. And if you say that around me, I'll figure out a way to throw up on you. I'm just warning you. Don't even go there.
Keep some humanure in your pocket and you can just take a whiff and have at it.
That's what I should do. I'll take the little baggies of humanure up. Here you go. Lisa says, and this is true, people seem to believe that our rights come from government and have become very comfortable nursing from the government teat, allowing them to decide what we shall receive in our lives. And it's so very true, but I'm not really sure. I mean, other than what you said, Shane, and I think that's extremely legitimate and 100% correct. We have to have those discussions in a one-to-one way, because not everybody's going to hear what we have to say in the same way. I mean, I have worked over the years of creating different arguments for different kind of sectors of the population, because people don't hear you. They may not hear you explain it one way, but they'll hear you explain it another way. And so that's another thing I think I would probably suggest to people is, if you're talking to somebody and you don't see that light bulb coming in, try different tact. I mean, tell your own personal story, because it's kind of like those of us who are Christians, we have the reason why we're Christian. And we can tell that testimony to other people and nobody can take that away. That's my testimony. So you can say what you want about it, but it doesn't make it any less true. So I think if we actually talk sometimes about what our political beliefs are, almost as they are a testimony, people can't take that away from you. And maybe we need to change tacks instead of just saying, don't do that. Maybe give them a reason not to do that. So just a thought.
Yeah,
based on yours, Senator.
Yeah. Can I go back to that apathy thing?
Yes.
So I was one of those apathetic, I don't want to get involved in politics. They leave me alone. I leave them alone. Not something I'm interested in doing. And then the whole go outside and you cannot breathe thing happened. And I wrote a blog post one morning in a fit of, this is not right. And Jenny reached out to me and said, well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you come to just come present this to the city and we'll just get it banned. And I was like, well, okay. And so how many months later, and when they actually sent someone from California, and this was what blew my mind. We're in the city council in Luther telling them how bad this is. This is the research, all the things. I'm told by one of the city council members, well, if you didn't like it, you shouldn't have moved here. That at that point, my head almost exploded. But then look out in the audience and there's a couple guys from the DEQ there. And I thought, oh, this is great. They're here to support us and they're here to tell them this is bad. And they were there to say how safe and effective and great sludge was.
Yep.
And that was when I realized we had a big problem. And then Senator Jett, let's take this to the state. Let's get this stopped. And then we realized what an even bigger problem it was. And, you know, when people say, I don't want to get involved in politics, and then when they see that we got involved in politics, and now not only are we the only donkey dairy and that notoriety, but we've had 2 times legislation filed targeting us and our farm in retaliation for speaking out. Now, this should not happen in our state. Where's our attorney general? Where's the smackdown on legislators that use their power and their pen to target citizens for using their freedom of speech to get involved in the political process? Because most people now, they say, look what happened to you. I'm not going to get involved. I don't want them to come after me. We live in the United States of America, and we have to use our freedom of speech. And now there are more of us that are aware of what's happening than of them. And we are fed up. And we have now started a spreadsheet, and we're tracking how every one of them is voting and how they are listening to the people. And we will endorse or not endorse, not based on relationships. Screw your relationships, based on your actions. And if you don't act the way the people want you to act, we will make sure someone runs against you. And we will make sure that we go across the state and door knock for that person if that's what it takes, because your vote affects all of us. And the people in the cities don't get to trounce on the rural communities anymore in this state. We have a voice, and we're going to use it. That's it.
Round of applause.
And thank you, Janie. Thank you all for activating me into this crazy world.
And I wish I had. There are sometimes I wish I never had. When I get those 5 a.m. in the morning text messages, all in caps with 27 exclamation points at the end.
But emojis. Don't forget the poop emojis. That's my favorite emoji right now.
I do want you to mention something quickly, though. There was a bill that did not pass yesterday that I think I would like for you to call out some people on.
Who, me?
Yes. You just posted it this morning.
Oh, no, it passed.
Oh, it did pass.
Yes, the one
I misread.
Rick West bill. Yes. So that one, and it didn't pass for 4 years. They have killed it every year. Representative Rick West has legislation allowing the right to grow a garden on your own property, no matter where you are in our state. And I need to look up the bill number. It passed committee barely, because the committee members, and I believe they were Democrats, on the Ag Committee said, well, what about our HOAs? What if the HOA says, no joke, they actually brought up, what about if they are not supposed to grow a tomato plant in their front garden, in their front flower bed?
Is there a way we can, hey, Senator, do you think there's like next year we can run a bill to get rid of HOAs?
Thank you. Yes.
I'm all for your deal.
Honestly, how do we have HOAs in America, and certainly in the state of Oklahoma? Where in the heck did these people come from? They're like little Nazi Germanys.
Absolutely.
And worse than that, they'll extort money from you and put a lien on your house if you don't pay it to follow their ridiculous little rules. How is this happening in Oklahoma?
So the thing is, it's private property, and there are covenants in place, so they have those little laws. But at the end of the day, they're also elected by the people who live there. So you're exactly in the same dichotomy. They've created a government of themselves, and then nobody gets involved until someone gets really angry, and then they have to go and re-elect and get someone there who reflects the community's values. The same thing on a microcosm that's happening in a HOA is happening on a microcosm in city council. It is in a larger on the state legislative side. At the end of the day, it's if all the people say, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that, then you replace and put someone in place that represents your values. It's the same thing. HOA, city hall, county commissioner, they're all elected. And so you just you have to engage. You can't be asleep.
I just feel like how you can have a city inside a city inside a city inside a state. Yep. I mean, how much government do we actually need to regulate anything?
Because your tomato plant can't be grown. That's not okay. It was
I know.
House Bill 1189 by Representative Rick West, and he has tried for 4 years to get that through. And I mean, I'm seriously sitting there going, listening to the questioning on this, and they're saying, well, what about the HOAs? And what if they're not supposed to have a tomato plant? And I'm going, okay, have we lost touch with humanity, and that some people are struggling to buy groceries right now? And we're not going to let them plant a tomato plant to feed their children a healthy tomato from their garden, where maybe they actually get their kids involved and they grow a garden together and they learn about where food comes from. But some of the legislators in that committee voted no, because they didn't think they should have the right to do that, because the HOAs might get superseded by state law. And I had no idea that this was tried 4 years to get through, and that they've killed it every time.
Okay, hold on. We got to stop, because V has a good question that we need to talk about. How do you find which farmers have used sludge on their land? And that's such a good question, because I know that I, as a food producer myself, as a shepherd, we have to feed hay in the winter, and we don't want any of the crap on it. So we have to ask. And sometimes I can't be sure if people are telling me the truth or not. How do we know? And then beyond that, both of you, I think, know about a bill that would put something like that into effect. So get us going with that, and we'll probably have to get out here pretty quick.
Right. So Senator Shane Jett did have legislation that would have made them disclose that they use sludge on their field. And that's something, as far as capitalism goes. So you've got one farmer who's growing hay using free sludge and getting his land disc twice for free. And he is selling his hay for the same price or more than someone else who paid for fertilizer and disked his land and did all the work. And you don't get to know as a consumer which hay is clean. And they can lie to you. I've had people reach out to me and say, well, I'm going to buy hay from so-and-so, and he told me he doesn't use humanure. And Jenny, that was the same person that came to the city hall and said, well, what am I going to do when I can't use my humanure?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Same person lying to people. Yeah. So no, you don't have the right to know in our state.
Yeah, there were strawberries being sold as organic that right. had that.
And then people will say this is grass-fed beef and charge you more for it. That grass was fed with humanure.
So, Senator, what happened to the bill to make? I thought it was still out there to make them disclose.
No, it was not heard, and I don't believe it's one that we refiled. Is it, Saundra?
No, we ran now the one to ban it is the one you have. Okay. And I think the other one is the one that would create a map. So then you would have a map, a public map, so you could see where land applied with sludge.
And another way that sometimes you get some common sense infused into the community without going through the legislative process is when the insurance companies and their actuaries have to calculate the risk of the insuring land that has been contaminated. When they start imposing that, and then realtors start saying, okay, we need to have this form that says you've used over the last 10 years, have you used any of these toxins? And then suddenly that will reflect in the value of the resale of that land. So those types of things, you can have actually a private sector solution where your insurance companies, your realtors are going, I'm sorry, I need to have this information as we're assessing the actual value of your land for resale purposes. And then you can use it in that way.
Right. Can we go back real quick on the apathy?
Again to the apathy?
Yeah, because unfortunately.
Are you beating a dead donkey? Oh.
No, stop. That's not a funny joke. So until people realize that this is going to affect them, and unfortunately, I think, Senator Jett, you use people are either motivated by power, love, or fear. And, it was fear that motivated me, because I have 2 children now with childhood autoimmune diseases that have never before been seen in our families. So when you start to see results of lack of action or negligence, and that it's affecting our children and their health, that puts the fear in you. And so no one is aware that the EPA put in legally enforceable drinking water standards on PFAS last year. This is the PFAS roadmap or something stupid like that. And there's billions of dollars put in there. And people can look up the EPA PFAS water map and see the ones they've already tested and how much PFAS is in those areas in that water. They haven't tested everything yet, but on that map, you can already see there's one of the Wagner rural water districts. I believe it had 34. Shawnee had quite a bit in one of theirs, but they haven't tested everything yet. So within that, they put in billions of dollars for cities to put in filtration systems. If they jump through all the hoops and get the grant money, they can then filter out the PFAS with this money. And I dug and dug and dug, and I kept saying, well, where's the money for rural communities and to clean up the aquifer and the mess? And I finally found it, and I think it was $50 million. Which is not much money when you're talking about rural water, where they have been dumping their sludge for 40 plus years. And it's said in there, this money is not to be used to clean up the aquifer. It is not to be used to provide filtration systems for people on well water. It's to be used basically for the government to come out and test you, and then to either shut down your water supply or connect you to an existing public water supply if there is one. And if you're a farmer or rancher, if you're being made to pay city water prices to fill up your stock tanks and to water your gardens and just to irrigate, if you have an irrigation system, you know that that's a death knell. And so why did we first regulate the level of PFAS that they're going to say is safe? And I'm not saying it is or isn't, but it's 4 parts per trillion. That's the equivalent of 4 grains of sand in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's what they can tell you can or can't drink your water anymore for, or use it to irrigate your crops. So people need to start paying attention, because all these homesteaders and all these people, and I'm all for all of that and self-sufficiency, but if you have no water, you have nothing. You're done. And here's the thing. People will call me crazy and say, you're overreacting on this PFAS deal. No, it's not me. It is the government. And let me tell you from experience, when they came out and visited our farm and then they seized our donkey milk, our imported milk, and held it for 7 months, it didn't matter that I said it was safe. It didn't matter that it was safe. Mm-hmm. What mattered was that the government said, we're taking it, and you can't advertise anymore, and you can't sell your product anymore, and it's going to sit here for this many months until we say, oh, by the way, you were right, it was fine, but here's a product that's now expired, and you've been shut down for 7 months. So,
and they wanted to charge you for storing it.
Yes. So it doesn't matter if you come back to them when they come and say your water's contaminated and this humanure that we told you was safe is fine. What matters is that the government is the one that will tell you you're done now. And so if you trust them, then keep trusting them. But I no longer do. And this is why I'm involved, because we have to hold them accountable and make them trustworthy and put people in like Senator Jett, who I trust. I mean, they're one of the few families that I would let babysit my kids. And that's saying a lot. And so if you don't trust them to babysit your kids, then they shouldn't be up there babysitting our state.
Babysitting our lobbyists.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So hold on, I got to go back a second because this one is really good. Senator, you may have something to say about this as well, just about government in general. I asked Cattlemen's Association rep if they'll start putting biosludge fed cattle on these fields in the new ear tag data, because we're supposed to have, ranchers are supposed to use these RFID tags now to identify cattle. He said they didn't have enough staff to input the data. So why did we have to have a bill to allow RFID tags on cattle if there aren't enough people to input the data?
Because they're not interested in
data.
Yeah, that's not the data they're interested in. And I see a wholesale effort to undermine the stability and supply chain of our food stocks, period. And so the people that are implementing these things are outside the United States. They come in with model legislation. They say it's supposed to do a certain thing, but at the end of the day, they're tracking information so that they understand where all of our food supplies are. I mean, at the end of the day, the only solution to our problems is we, the people here locally, solving those problems and not submitting to overarching government programs that are supposed to, control us for the greater good. I mean, this is what's going on.
But again, as you said before, and I'm going to pop Lisa's other comment up, I think the apathy stems from ignorance about how local government works. This goes back to your comment, Senator. So many of us don't remember what we learned in 8th grade civics and vote in the presidential elections only. We could all benefit from a crash course in local government, how bills and laws work, etc., complete with flowcharts. I think people are more likely to be active in processes they understand, and far too few of us understand local and state government. Well, I'll be honest with you, Lisa, I was the mayor and I can't tell you how frustrated I was that I would say things occasionally like, well, we don't need to be doing that in Luther. What are we doing that here? And our attorney would say, and I quote, well, the state government says that and we have to defer to the state government. And I would always say, and I quote, then why do we even have a town? Then what's the point? I mean, if we can't do things that affect our betterment and affect what helps our citizens in our town, because we can't do that because the state says something else, what are we doing? I mean,
yeah,
what are we doing?
But as far as just getting involved on a local level, that is true. I mean, I had to go, well, Jenny, how do I do this? How do I take it to the city? And she had to tell me where town hall was and that I needed to be there early and sign in. And I had never, ever participated in anything government, and I didn't know how it worked. And now we're seeing that across the state right now with these grassroots groups, and they reach out to us and they say, wait, I just found out there's going to be 3,600 acres of solar panels installed all around me, and I don't want this to happen. And then will you come and help us? And I'm like, no, actually, this is you now. And we're giving you examples of how to get involved. But no, it will hurt you if I come and speak to your county commissioners, because they'll say, we're just outside influencers trying to rile you up. No, we're trying to help you get involved because this is on you. You have to protect your community. You have to call your legislator, because if I do, they'll just say, you're not my constituent. I don't care. And if
you can't call and ring the Ghostbusters here.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't work like that. You got it. You got to get the ghost yourself. All right. Well, we're coming up on 1:30, so I think we're probably going to end up kind of winding down here for a minute. But Michael, you've got something in the wings. Do you have something you want to show us? You're on mute.
I forgot you muted me. Yeah. A couple things. I want to go back to Brian Ford asked a question about the EPA, where they are. And I think I brought this up last time. This book by Dr. David Lewis, he was the original kind of EPA whistleblower. This guy was a career EPA guy. Back in the 90s, in 1996, he wrote this article in Nature magazine called The Causality of Election Politics. And literally, he outed these huge corporate pharmaceutical chemical conglomerations about how they literally go into the EPA. They have the EPA protect them and allow them to do all this stuff. I mean, it's insane. But if you want to know anything about where this all originated from, where it came from, how it came out, and I mean, Dr. Lewis was literally he was demonized. I mean, absolutely demonized, fired from the EPA. They tried to put him in jail. I mean, it was unbelievable. But that guy, in my opinion, is a national hero. And then I wanted to just make another quick comment also. My son, Robert made a comment about fluoride. And for years, I've been on the fluoride deal for years and years. Well, my son, one year, he wore a shirt to high school that said, fluoride is poison. They literally sent him home. They sent him home and told him he can't wear that shirt. Don't wear it again. And I was getting ready to go ballistic on him. And he's like, no, please don't. This is, I don't want you causing this scene. I don't want to, but that's how these people are. And I literally told my son the other day, I said, I said, I would like for you to contact your principal, because he's not in school anymore. He's in college now. This is my oldest. I said, why don't you contact your principal and the counselor and all those people and say, what you did to me was completely wrong, but he's not going to do that. But I just want to make that point. It's unbelievable some of the links that they'll go to on this stuff.
You also almost got me to do a spit take because I just had a drink. And then you said, because yes, I mean, Julia, who's
well, I can put this up. I can put this up too.
Oh, stop.
You want me to put that up, JD?
I
made that real
putting it up.
I made that real quick for you.
Oh, and then Julia says cause a scene at the risk of retaliation on your kiddos. But Julia, you and I were just talking this morning on Facebook about the fact that when we first started rope a long time ago, we had we said this and this and this and this and this, and people would get mad at us and tell us they didn't want to talk to us anymore. Legislators would get angry at us. But the problem is, except for maybe one thing that we talked about this morning, we haven't been wrong yet.
No.
We haven't been wrong. So how is it that nobody listens to us, or they still listen and they get mad? And we're like, okay, but here's the problem. We have a track record and you can't beat it. So either you listen to what we're going to say now, or you end up being another one of our, well, we told you so things. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and it's not hard. It's not like Julie and I are super smart, or I'm super smart, or anything else. It's common sense, people, and it's just following the way the government is supposed to work, just like the senator just explained that a little bit ago. It's not rocket science here. You just have to do some research for yourself. And unfortunately, like Lisa said, we need to go back to that. But you know what? I learned that not from school, but because I was a biologist, I didn't know any of that stuff. I had to teach myself that stuff. And hold on. Here is my favorite book for you to teach yourself. Can you see it? That's really bad. There it is. There it is. The 500-Year Leap. It's
5,000.
What?
5,000.
5,000.
What did I say?
500.
Oh, there. Hold on. No, it's the 5,000-Year Leap by, and I think it's Cleon Skousen.
Yeah,
right?
Cleon Skousen.
Yeah. This is the best book you can possibly find to teach yourself the principles of government. Wouldn't you agree with me, Senator?
It's a good book. I have it in my library.
And see, if you'll notice, do you see all of the tabs? I taught my kids out of that book, civics. It's so if you really would like to, for example, if you think to yourself, well, my neighbor doesn't understand this, that book isn't that expensive. You can get it anywhere. It's still in print because it's a phenomenal book. It's not that expensive, maybe $15. Buy one and give it to your neighbor. Buy one and give it to somebody in your family. It's a great book that absolutely explains the way government should work and the way our founders expected for government to work when they put the Constitution together. So, and it's true. Corporations have too much power. I mean, we've done all these things, but it goes back to Shane, it goes back to what you said, and then Saundra, you as well. It's our government. Everybody point to you. It's your government, right? If we don't do something about it, it's not going to happen by itself. It's just not going to organically get better. We're the ones, if we want to have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, we have to be the people that get involved. Mm-hmm. So there you go. All right. Anything else? Oh, Lisa says, I've never heard of that book. Ordering now. Good for you. And get extra for your neighbors when you do. All right. Anything else that you guys have? Senator, is there anything you want to mention to us before you pop off of here today?
I just appreciate that you are raising awareness and all of the comments, both those who are watching online that care enough. So thank you. I can't do what I do without grassroots and informed populace lighten up politicians, because what we know about politicians is usually they don't see the light until after they feel the heat. So keep bringing the heat, and it will make a difference.
Right.
Awesome. All right. Saundra, any last words?
No, just thank you very much for bringing some more light on this. It's not a comfortable topic. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about what they flush and where it goes. But we all need to stand up for each other. And cities need to understand that this isn't just affecting rural communities. We have to stand with our neighbors and love our neighbors, love each other, and do what's right, no matter what the cost. Like
you in the city eat the same food that we in the country do. So there you go. All right, guys, thank you so much for being. Okay, one last thing. I'm giving bus tours to Biosludge fields for state legislators. Look them up. Pass it around. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today, Senator. We really appreciate you, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All righty. And Saundra, you as well. And I will talk to you again very soon, like probably in 5 minutes. So have a great day. We'll talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye. All right, sir. That was a phenomenal. We had so many people on.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I wanted to make one more point, and I should have while Saundra and Senator Jett were both on there. Think about this, Jenny. You can literally put whatever you want in the sewer system from anywhere, literally, without being tracked. Unless someone's literally standing there filming you. Think about the next bioweapon in some capacity. Think about completely damaging, people or whatever. However, you want to attack and assault the people. That is in my opinion, that is one of the most overlooked ways that they're going to someone at some point is going to attack some city or town or whatever that way, in my opinion. And there's no way to track it. There's no way to trace it. There's no way to go back in time and say, hey, who dumped this stuff in this water, 20 years ago or, whatever. Talk about a delivery vehicle.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% correct. And it's just something that I don't think that we've given enough, concern to. Yeah, it's true. So before we pop off of here today, I would like to mention this. So this came out this morning. Oklahoma Republicans are helping green energy crony scam taxpayers out of billions by your one and only in the Federalist this morning. I really wish I'll throw the link in and to the later on. But I really wish you guys would go out and find this and share this, because I was extremely upset by what our governor said yesterday at his State of the State address. And I was not the only one to do that. So yesterday, our friend Nean Clinton posted something, and I just said, hey, can I repost that on the website? She actually wrote a letter to Governor Stitt concerning what our governor said in the State of the State address yesterday. And I'm hoping I'll have enough time to put something out about that myself today, because it was, in my personal opinion, it was the most mealy-mouthed, say nothing State of the State address when we have a very strong Republican president right now cracking down on fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah. And yet we have no guarantee from that coming from our governor at all. And the other thing that we don't have coming from our governor is our president has said enough with the green agenda. Now, I don't like what he's doing with data centers. We can talk about that at another time. But what he said is he hates wind turbines. They look terrible. They ruin. They don't really put out enough energy. They ruin the countryside. They're not recyclable. He's been very clear about this. And yet our governor shows up at his State of the State address yesterday and basically says, hey, we just love our more of everything. This is what he calls it. More of everything energy package philosophy policy here in the state of Oklahoma. And it's absolutely ridiculous. So thanks to Ian Clinton. Thank you, Julia. Julia said, great article. She's already read it this morning. And we need to pass that around because of the fact that, like I said, we'll go back to that in a second. So go to the website. You can find Garfield County Conservation Coalition's response to Governor Stitt's State of the State. Stand with us. Stand with Trump. Go read this. Ian and her crew have done a really great job in explaining what the problem was with the State of the State address, and how if we are not making our governor understand that this green stuff is removing land from people, it's creating stuff that cannot be recycled, it's removing farmland from being able to actually farm to use it. They're just
endangering the local wildlife.
Absolutely. I mean, all of the above. And unfortunately, I was having a little trouble this morning. Let me see if I can find it this morning. On our if you haven't visited the website, I've been posting a whole bunch of things, and I probably should say that really fast. I have been posting a whole bunch of things on our website that are bills from we've got homeschool bills to watch out for, thanks to the Homeschool Coalition and our friend Robert Scott. He did a great job kind of coalescing all of those. So if you're concerned about that, go to the website, look up those bills. We have bills on farming and ranching that you need to look at, and the green agenda. We have bills for OTA that the OTA has asked for, and that that Pykoff OTA has asked for against the OTA. You'll want to follow those. So I just suggest, please go to rope2.org and check and see all of the stuff that I've been posting kind of in a flurry the last couple of days, so that everybody has access to those. And don't forget, you can share it super easy. Down at the bottom of all of the articles, you can just press whatever buttons you want to share on whatever platforms that you have. Please make sure that you do that. The only way we have a great audience this morning, and Michael and I know, are so thankful for you. We really, really appreciate that. But now we just got to get to share that out and make sure that people are noticing that. Not only did the green energy, my article on green energy in the Federalist come out today, but I also had an article that I just put up on the website. I think it was Tuesday, and here it is. Now I can find it. All right. I was really shocked. I think people kind of missed it. So I'm going to pull it up here. Governor Stitt's Commerce Department gives multiple millions of taxpayer dollars to Paycom and Loves through quality jobs incentives. And if you've never used there is a, hang on, I'll find it down here. I can't even think about it. I can't even think of the name all of a sudden. Subsidy Tracker. Subsidy Tracker. Look up something called Subsidy Tracker, and it will absolutely tell you what kind of subsidies our state is giving away. And by subsidies, I mean our tax dollars that are being given away to corporations like Loves, like Paycom. And think about this. I mean, Paycom, oh my gosh, they make, I think I put it in here. He's the highest paid. Mr. Richardson is the highest paid CEO in the S&P 500. He makes $211 million. He just paid $26.5 million for a beachfront Malibu mansion. Hey, how many of those do you have, Michael? How many of those do you have?
Yeah, I'd have to take inventory.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. We've got to stop doing this. We've got to stop giving taxpayer dollars away. And I'm going to, I'm going to go back just a second and put this up so that everybody can see this. It's well documented, by the way. On Friday, we are actually going to have 2 separate podcasts. I don't know if Michael's going to be able to make it for the 1:00 one because Michael actually has to work. Isn't that weird? Oh, and here's another one. This is where I remind everyone that in a free country, taxes would be voluntary. Thank you again, Julia. We do appreciate you always plugging that. And Robbie says, thank you, Jenny and Michael. And we appreciate you, Robbie. Thank you for all you're doing too in your community. And thank you for watching. So on Friday, we're going to have 2 separate live podcasts. Okay. So the one at 9 a.m. is going to be Tom Gann and Marvin Goodman. And those of you who are faithful followers, you will know that we had a really great podcast where Michael and I and Whitney Mollica from Pike Off OTA talked about the interim study that Representative Gann did on FLOC, or automatic license plate reader technology in the state of Oklahoma. Remember that, Michael?
Yep.
That was, my goodness. I think the videos that I pulled from that particular one I think we had one of them that got 21,000 views.
Yeah.
It was something
Yeah, went pretty viral.
It was like, well, people, if you're concerned about this, it can't be happening here then. If 21,000 of you are going to watch this and go, oh, that's super bad, then we need to stop it from happening here. Representative Gann does have legislation that he's running this session to rein in that whole idea of the state surveilling citizens through automatic license plate readers. Please be with Michael and us and me at 9:00 right here on whatever channel you're watching this on. Be right here at 9:00, and you'll get to hear from Tom Gann and Marvin Goodman. Marvin Goodman is a former Logan County Commissioner. He was very involved in the interim study. He's been very involved in trying to get Logan County and Guthrie to stop using these just along the side of the road. He's got a very interesting story that you'll want to hear. And then at 1:00, our friend Representative Jay Siegel, who, don't forget, is trying to get the income tax repealed. He's trying to get the income tax repealed, but it's going to be a little hard when I've just brought to the attention of the people of Oklahoma and now America the number of tax incentives Governor Stitt's administration is giving away. So unless we put a stop to that, I don't see how we're going to get rid of income taxes. Do you, Michael?
No.
I don't either. So please be here, Representative Siegel, at 1:00 on Friday. We're going to be live with Representative Siegel. We're hoping Representative Gann can join in at that time too, to help kind of talk about that a little bit. But we're going to talk about how are we going to stop income tax when we can't stop giving away our money. So that's what we've got coming up on Friday, 2 live podcasts. You'll want to be here at 9 and 1 p.m. Anything for you, Michael?
I think that's it. Just as always, no one's coming to save us. We got to do it. We got to take responsibility for that.
Tosley says, are we talking about plate pay? No, we're not actually talking about that technology. We're talking about technology that many police officers actually have in their car that is a camera that allows them to scan your license plate and find out information about you before a traffic stop.
And they have other products, other cameras, other products that they can just put around to monitor also.
And my friend Robert has done exactly what I asked him to do, which is to go to the subsidy tracker. And you were absolutely shocked, weren't you, Robert, Mr. Scott? Because yes, Boeing is another huge one that we give money to. It's absolutely shocking to me. And I made the point in my article. The Commerce Department says, well, we're trying to make Oklahoma, a come-to state, right? We want to make sure that we have jobs and everything here. Okay, well, that's great. But do you realize that of the 10 largest employers in Oklahoma, neither Paycom nor Love's are in the top 10? So why are we giving the money again? Lisa says, uh-oh, Logan County, that's where I'm from. License plates should be voluntary too. I'm with you, Julian. You know I am. Lots of things should be voluntary. Wonder if any of that money trickled from them high-paying employees to the donkey lady. That would be interesting. Thank you, Michael and Jenny and guests. You're making a difference. Well, you're making a difference, actually, Lisa, because you're tuning in, learning the stuff that we have to tell you and telling others, and that's what's making the difference. So if you do you have anything else before we get off of here for today?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, everybody, it was a wonderful podcast. Thank you so very much, all of you who tuned in. Please be here at 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Friday for our podcast then. And share as always. And we appreciate you. And we'll see you Friday morning at 9 a.m. God bless.